Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Kill Bill Volume 1, starring Uma Thurman, Lucy Liu, Vivica A. Fox, Daryl Hannah, David Carradine, and Michael Madsen, and directed by Quentin Tarantino. This is the first Quentin Tarantino movie I saw in theaters. What did I think of it then? Well, I remember liking it, but what about today? Let's get into it. We open with a woman just called the Bride for now, played by Uma Thurman, being confronted by Bill, played by David Carradine, as he shoots her and puts her in a coma for now, which is a reasonable opening, but David Carradine goes on for a minute and a half of dialogue, which kind of bored me. The bride goes to the house of Jeannie Bell, aka Vernita Green, played by Vivica A. Fox, in Pasadena, California, and picks a fight with her because of what she did to her 4 years ago. And the way they go back and forth by calling each other bitch throughout the scene, and oh my god, the beeping of the name of her actual name, the bride, just annoyed the living shit out of me. But there's a reason Mr. Tarantino does it, but it's still very fucking stupid. And the conversation between the bride and Vernita was a little overlong until Vernita shoots the bride as she stabs her. The bride stabs Vernita by throwing a knife in her chest in front of her little girl, and says when she grows up to be an adult, she'll be waiting for her to kill her ass. Which I found an interesting choice by Mr. Tarantino, because now he's going to make another one. No. So this is just what I'm theorizing. In El Paso, Texas, the sheriff's department comes in on a crime scene to see the bride is not dead, and they put her in a hospital where L. Driver, played by Daryl Hannah, tries to put a poison in the bride as Bill tells her to abort the mission. And that was an interesting choice of Bill. He lets her go and gets vengeance against him. And all of his henchwomen, 4 years later, she wakes up in a coma, and all these years she gets raped by Buck, who likes to fuck, and brings his friend to do the same thing until she bites his tongue out. And I thought, what a fucking horrible nurse. Until she kills his dumbass and takes his car, the pussy wagon. And remind me, how the fuck did she get out of there without being seen? Because that didn't work for me. And she gets on the pussy wagon, which was kind of funny, as she tells herself to wiggle her big toe. While trying to wiggle her big toe, we get the origin of Owen Ishii, played by Lucy Liu, and how her parents got killed by a Japanese kingpin as a little girl in anime. Now, I'm not into anime as much, so it did kind of bore me, and she gets her vengeance, and that whole sequence bored me half to death. 13 hours later, the bride can walk after 4 years of coma sleep, and goes to Okinawa, Japan, to talk to a man whom Bill was a student of his. And she asks to make her a sword, and I did like the fact that she can walk after a 4-year coma, and I did like how hysterical the sword maker was at a restaurant he owns. And his employee talks back and twists his hand as the employee thinks he would be general at the war, but the sword maker says he would be emperor. I laughed so hard it was so damn funny. We see Owen Ishii as an adult, and we meet Sophie, Bart, Gogo, and Johnny Mao as her bodyguards, and boss Tanaka bursts into anger and pisses off old Ren and cuts her motherfucking head off, and threatens to collect their heads like Tanaka. And I love the way Lucy Liu plays that scene. As soon as she cuts his head, I was like, damn, she plays it kind of cool. The motorcycle and uniform the bride wears is badass, and the piece of music that I call the Kill Bill theme that goes like da 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 was just totally fucking awesome. And the songs performed by the 5, 6, 7, 8s are good and hysterical. And one reader looks like Charlie Brown cracked me up to death. The bride cuts Sophie's arm off, and yes, Mr. Tarantino went there, and she cuts Mickey, in the stomach, and she pulls him up, and I didn't think Uma Thurman was that strong, but to carry a man with a sword. But I thought, shit, I guess I can't underestimate a woman, because next thing you know, she'll kick your ass. The fight between the bride and Go-Go was hilarious, and it ended by the bride stabbing Go-Go in the foot, and I was like, fuck me. But she fights like 100 of her assassins, and I laugh in a way I thought, oh shit, because the scene is over the top and choreographed so badly. But I did find "Go Home to Your Mother" as she smacks one's ass with her sword. The fight between Oren and the bride was rather too easily done, and it ended way too easily. As I saw her inside brain, which was fucking graphic, and Sophie gives Bill a message after the bride throws her out of her trunk, and she goes after Bud, played by briefly Michael Madsen, Elle, and Bill himself, as this is an irritating part 1, part 2 stories. But that as an ending got me anticipated for next week. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 6.8 out of 10. This isn't Mr. Tarantino's greatest work, and we'll see how Volume 2 does next week. In the meantime, there are problems with this movie, sure, and I talked about them too. The movie did get a little hysterical at times, particularly since the violence, but it's a good movie, not a great movie, but I like it fine. I also love the theme music to this movie. I might want to download that on my phone. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next week I'll be back with Kill Bill Volume 2. And until next time, and action.